So before we had kids, Jenny and I were fun. We had some great, kind of almost epic adventures, backpacking across Europe and things like that. And then when the kids got older, we kind of became fun again. We started to do some stuff, explore and things like that. But there was this whole middle season, about 10 years of our life. When the kids were little, we had absolutely no money. So our idea of vacation meant going to Ohio. Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with Ohio. I grew up there, family there, good people in Ohio, but still, it's Ohio. So in the middle of that long, felt like unending season of life, we had one of our family vacations to Ohio, and I was desperate to make it a little more fun, like something exciting. And so I had an idea. I was like, hey, your dad has his private pilot's license. So how about when we go to Ohio, you drop me off at Richwood, Ohio, which is kind of central where most of my family's from, and then you drive down to Cincinnati, where her family's from in the south, and then in a day or two, your dad will ask him if he can come pick me up in his Cessna and bring me back. Right? This is a great idea. It sounded like an adventure. I'd flown like once before in one of those little planes, and I was like flying in the Cessna, and I knew her dad, there was nothing he would more love than to take me flying. So I was like, what do you think? And Jenny replied, fine. Which I'm never quite sure what to do with that. Does fine mean fine, or does fine mean fine? But then she clarified, you have to promise me that you're going to get life insurance first. I'm like, oh, fair enough. Seems reasonable. So, and at that point, I'd been meaning to get life insurance. It's one of those things you got to do as a dad at some point. It's just, the whole thing is, you got to get through this lengthy interview, gets really personal. You got to do blood work, they urinate in a cup. Who wants to do that? And I had put it off, and then, just to be honest, I hate insurance. I find it really demotivating investing in something you hope will never pay off. So, anyways, but a deal's a deal. So I procrastinated as long as I could. Literally the day before we take off, I'm on the phone with this insurance salesman, and I have the pleasure of talking to him about all the ways that I might die and the dire straits that I would leave my family in. Great, good times. And then after this long, awkward conversation, we get to the sales pitch, right? Well, we got some options here. And option A was like, it'll cover the mortgage, so your family won't have to be homeless. I'm like, well, that's good. Homeless would be bad. And then there's the upgraded option B, which is like, we'll take care of the mortgage, and your kids can actually go to college. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then there's option C that was like they get fabulously wealthy, like they just hit the lotto. And then he brings it in with all this seriousness, like, now how do you want your family to be taken care of when you pass? All this guilt and shame, all this pouring on me. And the guy clearly didn't know me because I just started laughing. I don't want my family to suffer, but do they have to think my death was the best thing that ever happened to them? Come on. And then all I can picture is like Jenny marrying some like rich guy living in a mansion. He's like Steve or Rick, and he's probably tall. Come on. But the insurance salesman didn't quite catch where I was going, so he kept pressing me. And eventually I was like, okay, here's the deal, man. I don't plan on dying. And then I realized what I just said. I don't plan on dying? I don't plan on dying. Maybe I should. So that was over a decade ago. That was before I needed multifocal lenses to read my text right now. That was before making it through an entire night without going to the bathroom felt like a victory. That was before my babies became teenagers. Now, right now, I still have some life in me. I can still jog an 8-minute mile. I can carry 2, maybe 3 sheets of drywall at a time. I can listen to a lecture at 1.5 speed and have near perfect recall every time. I can still outbench my son. But I know that if I live long enough, eventually God's going to ask for every one of these things back. They're on loan. They're a gift for a time. I'm a steward that I have to give it back to him. And eventually he's going to take every one of these things from me, and then I'm going to die. And the same thing's going to happen to you. If we want to live well today, we need to start by planning on dying. It is a stark reality, a hard reality to face, and facing this on your own can be difficult. Like facing your own limitations, your own mortality, it can be confusing and frustrating and maddening. It can make you feel helpless and lost, and God knows this. He knows that it's going to trigger in us all kinds of like insecurities and frustration and confusion, and he doesn't expect us to find our way on our own. In fact, he sends us a guide. We don't know his name. In Hebrew, it's Kohelet. Greek, it's Ecclesiastes. We just know him as the teacher. And so for the past 3 months, this teacher of Ecclesiastes has been helping us face the limitations of our own humanity so that we can live fully into our humanity. Like, you got to know who you are so that you can fully live the life that God has given you. And he's helped us plan on dying so that we can learn how to really live. Today, as we come to the very end of Ecclesiastes, we find ourselves once again sitting, listening to the teacher one last time as he gives some advice for those who are not yet dead. Let's pick it up. It's going to be Ecclesiastes chapter 11. We're going to backtrack a little bit from last week. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, starting in verse 7. I want to get a running start into where we're heading. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, starting in verse 7, starts like this. Light is sweet, and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. Now this is literally true. And I personally feel this, know this too well. So anytime my life feels like frayed, broken, strained, I get up, I go out to my back deck, and I sit in the morning sun. This is what I do. And something about the morning sun makes me feel whole again, makes me feel healed. It makes me feel like it puts things in perspective. It doesn't just warm me, it does something in me. So I've been known, even in the middle of the winter, to grab my puffer coat and my Bible and go out on the back deck and just sit in the sun. And apparently there's some science behind this. If you listen to like the science influencers online, Andrew Huberman and those guys, they're all going to advise, what should you do every single day? You need to get some sunlight in your eyes. Ideally in the morning, it triggers like the circadian rhythm, regulates metabolism, reduces anxiety, etc., etc., etc. You should do that. But I'm guessing that the teacher here has more than some self-care practices in mind. Because his wording, you see, over the last 10 chapters, he said again and again, talked about again and again, all the things that he could see under the light of the sun, all the things lit up in this world under the sun. He's observed everything, and here's some of the things that he's seen. He says, I saw the pleasures and achievements. They don't actually give me what I'm longing for. I saw injustice and oppression. I saw that most of what we do in life is driven by envy and greed. I saw that time and chance happen to us all. That's pretty bleak. But then here, at the end of this book, alongside these, not negating any of that, but alongside of all these things he's seen under the sun, he's going to add one more thing. He says, well, if you open your eyes and let the light in and really see what's happening in your world, you won't just see this. You will also see some things that are sweet. Some things that are pretty fantastic. So yeah, there are the frustrating things, the hard things, things that you will never understand, mysteries that you will never understand in this life. But there are also mysteries that are beautiful. There are also things that are stunning. The birth of a new baby, flowers in bloom, the times of feasting and celebration. And there are people who in the midst of all of this are going to find a deep joy. And you can be one of those people. Verse 8. However many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. There is joy, delight, beauty, goodness to be found in every phase, every season, everything, everyone, from the nursery to the nursing home. And the words of the Apostle Paul, 1 Timothy 4, he says, "For everything God created is good." It's good, it's good, it's good. And nothing is to be rejected if it's received with thanksgiving. So if you match this, the goodness with which God made things, and you receive it as a gift, and you give him thanks, live in gratitude, goodness and gratitude, this joy erupts in your heart. It's there to be had, that God has scattered goodness and beauty everywhere if you just open your eyes to it. Now, a superficial reading of Ecclesiastes might lead you to think that the teacher is really, really jaded. He's a cynic. He's like one of those grumpy French philosophers or something. After he's seen so much hardship, you might expect him to conclude with Job's wife, curse God and die. Something horrific. I mean, that's what it might suggest. But this is to miss the complexity of Ecclesiastes and the complexity of life. Now, it's true, there are many frustrating, confusing, maddening things in this life. But if you and I could just let go of trying to think we have to solve all of those problems, we have to control all of that, and we receive life as it's meant to be, as a gift from God, well, you'll also find joy. Profound joy. Now, if you are in the middle of a difficult season, this can be really hard to stomach. So I still remember when we had just little bitties, and we'd be like holding our kid, like our eyes are bloodshot because we didn't get any sleep last night, spit up on your shirt, dirty diaper in your back pocket, crushed up Cheerios in your car, and Kids Bop on the radio, and you're just like, ah. And then some random 50-year-old comes up to you and you're like, oh, you're so lucky. These are the best days of your life. And then at that moment, it just takes everything in you just not to cuss. If this is the best day of life, what? Now this is why I love the teacher. And this is why I trust the teacher. He doesn't romanticize anything. He's not saying that life is going to be all cupcakes and butterflies. But after 10 chapters of being brutally, frighteningly honest about the hardships of life, he then stops us, and you can trust him when he says then, life is going to go so much faster than you can possibly imagine. Days will turn into weeks, will turn into years, whole decades of your life will pass by. And in the midst of all this chaos, in the midst of all this busyness, in the midst of all the hurts, the real hurts, they're all there. There is joy to be found. Profound joy. In that meal with friends, in that project you're working on, in that evening walk with your spouse, even rocking your baby at the 3 a.m. feeding, and sitting in church next to loved ones, and the trees bursting into bloom and the sun on your face. Now, at that moment, these might seem like nothing. And in that moment, there might be a million things screaming for your attention. In that moment, those things might feel like distractions of the things you have to do. But if you would just open your eyes, open your hands to the gift that God wants to give you, there is joy to be had. But just to make sure we don't think he's going all like squishing romantic on us, he adds in this. But let them remember the days of darkness, for there will be many. Everything to come is meaningless. Aren't you happy? Now, I do want to clarify, in this passage, throughout the book, the word meaningless is a translation. What's the word? You guys know it? Hevel. And in Hebrew, that doesn't actually mean meaningless in this passage. They're trying to be consistent in this translation, but here it clearly doesn't mean meaningless. It means breath. Vapor. I mean, something you can't grab a hold of. You can't control or predict. It's everything is so short-lived. And so because it's so short-lived, he says this, you who are young, be happy while you're young, and let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Like, don't waste the life that God gives you. Learn from me, he's saying. Like, don't make the mistake I made. Don't ruin your life chasing after all these things that can't really fill the void or make you happy. Don't spend your life on the wrong things. That the sooner you surrender to God, the sooner you open your hands to him, the sooner you'll experience the joy and happiness for which you are created in him. Receive life as it is, a gift from God. Now, there is a temptation, especially among young people, to think that God is somehow against your joy. As if God wants us to be miserable or something. So like Adam and Eve, we all have this temptation to think that God's holding out on us. That the reason he doesn't want us to taste that forbidden fruit is because he is against our joy, because he doesn't want to fulfill our desires. He doesn't want us to be happy. So we're hesitant to trust him. We're hesitant to surrender our lives to him. We're afraid that he's going to take away what we really want. That following him means losing what we really want in life. So when I was in seminary, I paid my way through seminary as a doorman at a hotel. Got to wear the big fancy outfit with a hat and all that, this fancy hotel, and park all these expensive cars. One night, late, I was literally studying my Greek cards. I had a Greek quiz the next morning, so I'm studying biblical Greek. And my one valet was with me. It's 1 a.m. We're waiting for the bar to shut down so we can wrap things up. And he comes over to me, sees me studying my Greek card, and says, "You're like a pastor, right?" I'm like, "Well, kinda. I'm studying to be one." And then he said something I didn't expect him to say. He said, "Yeah, I grew up in church. I got baptized as a teenager." So his name was John, and nothing about John gave off the church kid vibe. Okay, so like if you were to like look up a textbook definition of debauchery, John's life. Well, so he was not just a partier, he was an all-out alcoholic in the making. He was almost certainly a sex addict. He had a long-term committed girlfriend back home, but he incessantly talked about porn and constantly bragged about all the other women he was sleeping with. So I wasn't quite ready for this conversation, but he got really sober and said, when I was baptized, the pastor told me that I was forgiven and I was clean. And he said, someday, I want that. Someday, I want to marry my girlfriend. I want to start a family. I want to go back to church. So here's his question. When I'm ready, can I get baptized again? Not now, because I'm not ready. I'm not ready to give up all this stuff. But when I've experienced all, when I've done all this, can I get baptized again and start over? And so my heart just went out to John. Like, he felt trapped. He was like enslaved by his own desires. Like, he knew he was living in sin. He felt the shame. He was carrying it with him. He knew that what he was doing wasn't right. He wanted to be clean. He wanted to be forgiven. He wanted to be upright, but not yet. Something in him made him hesitate. Like, he was hesitant to trust God. He hesitant to surrender his life to him, afraid that God was going to take away what he really wanted. Like, he did not believe that God really wanted him to be happy. So ironically, in chasing his own happiness apart from God, he was making himself miserable. Do you hear that? He wouldn't let go of it, so he clung to the very things that were making his life miserable. Now, not many of us, thankfully, have the same temptations that John had. But we are all tempted to seek our happiness apart from God. Like, I'll get right with God after I do this, after I graduate, after my career gets settled, after I get married, after I have kids, after I retire, after. We hesitate. We're not sure we can trust God with our desires and our hopes. And the teacher here, he pleads with us. Don't put it off. Don't wait around. Every day that you wait, you lose it. It's spilled out on the ground. The joy is for you here, now, today. But you have to surrender. You have to give yourself to him. And in order to drive this point home, watch what he says next. He says this. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see. Now, on the face of it, this feels like pretty terrible advice. I'm pretty sure every bad decision I made comes from following the ways of my heart and whatever my eye sees, right? And if you understand this in context, it sounds even worse when you realize that he's actually referring to a passage from Numbers chapter 15 here. He didn't just make this up. He's pulling a passage from Numbers chapter 15. So Numbers chapter 15, God explains to his people, I want you to wear on your garments these little tassels that hang down. Tassels on the corner of your garments. If you've ever seen like a Jewish prayer shawl, it's these little tassels, tzitzit, that hang down from their prayer shawl. Now why? Why does God want us to have the tassels on the prayer shawl? They're a reminder. Watch this, Numbers 15:39. You will have these tassels to look at, and so you will remember all the commands of the Lord. They remind you of the commands of the Lord, that you may obey them and not prostitute yourselves by chasing after the lust of your own hearts and eyes. Of your own hearts and eyes. In the Hebrew, it's almost a direct quote here when we come to the book of Ecclesiastes. Why do you wear tassels? So that you won't do this. So you won't follow the ways of your heart and see whatever your eyes see. So he's saying, in Numbers, he's saying, don't do this. If you follow it, it's going to destroy you. You prostitute, you. Strong language. So get what the teacher is doing here. There are people like John who read Numbers chapter 15 and think, see, I knew it. God doesn't want me to enjoy life. He wants me to obey his commandments. To obey his commandments is to take a joyless life, to never have a life of fulfillment or joy or pleasure. And so the teacher then takes this very passage and says, you have it exactly opposite. God wants you to obey his commandments so that you can share in his joy. That's why he wants you to obey it. He made you so that you could walk in this deep, rich fullness of life. These commandments point you towards that. In fact, Jesus says the very thing in John chapter 15. Why do you follow the commandments? Why should you obey God? Why should you surrender yourself to him? So that your joy may be complete. That obedience and surrender are not barriers to joy. They're the way to joy. That God doesn't give his commandments to ruin your life, but to give you life, to lead you to life. So watch how the teacher frames this. He says, follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see, but know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. God will judge you, and you should live like it. You should live like life in view of God's judgment. But no, understand the context here. This judgment is a double-edged sword. Not only will he judge you for finding your joy on your own apart from him, seeking joy apart from him, he will judge that. He will also judge you for not enjoying the good gifts that he gives you. Do you hear that? If you go through life and never enjoy the things that God has given you, never rejoice, never laugh, never celebrate, never say thank you, God will judge you. Somebody's having joy right now over in the kids' room. See? Example for us. God commands us in his scriptures to rejoice, to delight, to enjoy his good gifts. It's essential to the concept of Sabbath. It's crucial to the Old Testament feast of Passover, Pentecost, Tabernacles. And in the New Testament, this joy bursts forth in everyone who surrenders their life to Jesus. Everyone who does that, this joy just blooms in their life. My favorite example is Acts chapter 16. The Apostle Paul and Silas, they're in Philippi. They get flogged, thrown into prison, and they're in shackles in prison. What do they do about midnight? They start singing. They can't contain themselves. They start praising God. This joy just starts erupting from them. And then in the midst of that joyful singing, what happens? The earth shakes. The shackles fall off. The doors spring open because nothing can hold that back. And the guard comes down and says, oh no, the jailer comes down and says, they must have escaped. I have to kill myself. And Paul says, stop. We're all here. He saves the life of the man who imprisoned him. And then this jailer comes up to him, completely overtaken by what he's just seen. He falls on his knees. He says, what do I have to do to be saved? How can I get that life that you have? How can I experience that kind of joy? And Paul says famously, believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you will be saved. You have to surrender your life into his hands. You have to make him Lord of your life, and that will not crush your life. That's how you'll find it. That's where this joy comes from. You see, obedience and surrender are not barriers to joy. They are the way to joy. Verse 10, so then banish anxiety from your heart and cast off the troubles of your body, for youth and vigor are meaningless. They're fleeting. Last week, Greg pressed into what it looks like to banish anxiety from our hearts. Here, I simply want to point out that when he tells us to banish anxiety and cast off trouble, he's speaking specifically and explicitly to young people. Young people. See, early in life, you're going to start collecting wounds and hurts and pains from your family, from your friends, from people at church, from yourself. And if you don't deal with these, if you don't cast them off, if you don't banish them, if you don't root them out, it will steal your joy. It'll ruin the good parts. A young, wounded person will become an old, bitter, lonely person. And he says, don't let that happen. Deal with your demons now, today, while you're still young. Don't let it ruin your marriage. Don't let it misshape how you parent your kids. Don't let it steal your joy. Do the work. Go to counseling. Attend an emotionally healthy spirituality course. Deal with this now while you're young. Deal with it, or it's going to wreck the rest of your life. And then the teacher gives us his famous parting words. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Like when you're young, remember him. The teacher says, when I was young, I thought that, remember chapter 1 and 2, I thought that the way to make my life significant was if everyone remembered me, to leave a legacy. Remember my greatness. That's what I thought would make my life great. But now that I'm old, I realize I had it exactly backwards. What makes my life great is not people remembering me. It's when I remember my Creator. It's not about me. Life is found in him. And notice he doesn't say, remember your God. He says, remember your Creator. Remember that you are not self-made. Remember that everything you have and everything you are was given to you by God, that life itself is a gift. And the teacher then takes this and leads us into this unsettling image of a familiar house that was once full of life and action and activity, but now it's like kind of worn down, collapsing on itself, falling apart. Now, some modern scholars, they believe that this is an image of the unmaking of creation, that it's, to quote the Old Testament prophets, it's the day of the Lord, the end of the world as we know it. And it very well could be, probably is. But since ancient times, rabbis and later Christians saw something more familiar and personal in here, that it wasn't just the end of the world, it's the end of your world. That it's a picture of what it's like getting old. That you were once a house that was full of life, full of activity, full of new things happening, men building things, kids playing, girls singing, women grinding wheat at the mill, trees in bloom. And then one day you look in the mirror, and this is what you see. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark and the clouds return after the rain. When the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men stoop, that these hands that could once lift up my kid with one arm, someday they'll tremble to button my shirt or put on my shoes. When the grinders cease because they are few, and those looking through the windows grow dim, when teeth fall out, eyes grow dim. When the doors of the street are closed and the sound of grinding fades, socially, physically, you just start pulling into yourself. When people rise up at the sound of birds, but all the songs grow faint, it's hard to hear, hard to sleep through the night. When people are afraid of heights and the dangers in the streets, like something small, like standing on top of a chair to change a light bulb, feels heroic and frightening. When the almond tree blossoms, almond trees, they turn white, and then all of the blossoms fall like hair. When the grasshopper drags itself along and desire is no longer stirred. Literally, when the caperberry fails. In the ancient Near East, capers were known to always be in season, the fruit that's always in season, always alive, and then the fruit was considered to be an aphrodisiac. He says, but a day will come when even the caperberry will fail. You'll no longer be in bloom, and no matter what you take, desire's gone. Then people go to their eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. Everyone will gather around you. Your family will gather. They'll weep in front of your coffin, and then they'll bury you in the ground. Remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well. The dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. And then he closes. His last statement is the same as his first statement. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is. Notice these are the opening words of the book and the closing words of the teacher here. At this point, we've come full circle. We've ended where we started, except the journey in between has taught us something. It's changed us. And the editor, he wants to make sure that we understand that even though the last words and the first words are the same, we're not the same in between. So he adds these words. This is the words of an editor of the book at the end. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. The teacher searched to find the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. Now, I want you to appreciate this. We've read this book now. All those doubts, all those frustrations, all that screaming about what's the meaning of life. He says, yeah, that's upright and true. That's a process we all need to get in on. These words of the wise are like goads. They're sayings like firmly embedded nails given by one shepherd. They're like goads, which are the sharp sticks that you would use to direct your livestock. When they're headed in the wrong direction, you poke them, you stab them. And these words, they're going to stab you, they're going to bite. At times it'll hurt, but only when you're headed in the wrong direction. When you let go, when you receive life as gift, you'll be in the right direction. It's when you try and grasp for yourself, you're going to feel the stab. And they're like firmly embedded nails in this world where everything is turned upside down, where you're not sure what you can hold on to. These words are going to give you a foundation. Here's something you can cling to when you can't cling to anything else. And how do you know that you can trust them? Because they're given by one shepherd. These aren't just the words of the teacher. These words come from God. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. Of making many books there is no end, and of much study wearies the body. Students, this can become your life verse. Yeah. What he's saying here is that there are limits to human knowledge. So yeah, go study your books, read your science, understand the philosophy and psychology, understand it, get into that. That's great, but know that there are limits. Know that there are some things they will never be able to answer. And if you don't come to peace with those limits, you will not come to peace with God or with yourself. Now all has been heard. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil, including every hidden thing. There are no secrets with God. And this is it. This is what you and I need to plan on. That if we live well, if we want to live well now, here, today, we have to begin with this end in mind, that at the end of our life, you will die, and then you will stand nakedly before the God of the universe who will reveal all things. If we start there and live life backwards, there is a clarity, a stunning simplicity to life that he can summarize in just this one line. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is it. This is the way to joy. This is the way to the life that you're seeking. Fear God. The worship Hebrew concept does have perhaps the connotation of fear, but it's bigger than that. It's worship God. Stand in awe of his reverence. Tremble before him, before his greatness, stand in humility before the one who created all things and created you and loves you more than you can imagine. And keep his commandments. Know that his commandments are not given to limit your joy. He's not holding out on you, but his commandments lead to freedom, to life, to joy. So embrace them when you're young, now, today. Surrender to them. Now this, I have to say, this sounds so simple. Almost too simple. In fact, if the book of Ecclesiastes had started out like this, in fact, he could have skipped over everything, just said, fear God and keep his commandments, right? This reminds me of that quote attributed to the Chief Justice, or Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. It goes like this. For the simplicity that lies on this side of complexity, I would not give a fig. But for the simplicity that lies on the other side of complexity, I would give my life. And that is a picture of Ecclesiastes. So if he had started with fear God and his commandments, it would sound glib. It would sound like some religious talk. Like, you clearly don't understand how complex my life is. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know my hurts. You don't know my struggles. But he doesn't start there, does he? No, he takes us into the middle of that. Through all the pains, through all the questions you ask, he asks more questions than any of us could ask. He screams at God. He wrestles with all of it. And then driving us through all of that, dragging us to the other end. Then on the other end, in this word of peace, he drops these words on us. Fear God, keep his commandments. Now, on the other side of that, these words drop with a weight on your soul. They do not deny hardship. They do not gloss over your doubts or fears or uncertainty. They do not pretend like life is easy. But taking these with grave seriousness, he now stands in the presence of his Creator, and he trembles in awe. And does this answer all of his intellectual questions? No, it doesn't. But it gives you the only answer you need to know. There is a God, and he created you, and he loves you. So fear him. Keep his commandments. Have you ever seen the movie Schindler's List? It's a hard one to watch. Hard. But it's the story of Schindler who ran this factory, and he used it to save Jews out of the concentration camps, to save their lives. So he would hire them as workers, and by doing so, he could save them from execution. And at the very end of the movie, hard movie to watch, at the very end, there is this scene that just captures this so well. He's standing there, and he pulls up in his car, and all these Jews come out to him to thank him for saving their lives. And they give him this pen to recognize him. And in that moment, he starts convulsing and weeping. And he says, this pen, this could have saved another life. My car, it could have saved 10 more lives. This could have saved. And he realizes when he's standing there at that moment, every selfish act he did was a loss. And that is what the teacher wants to save us from. This journey that the teacher makes from despair to awe, from death to life, from chasing everything to finding the one thing that actually matters, this is the same journey that we're all invited into, that we need to discover that obedience and surrender are not the barriers to your joy, they're the way to joy. That by dying to yourself, it's not the end of life, that's the beginning of life. But Ecclesiastes, it's only a shadow, it's not the reality. And the teacher, he is not the way. He points us to the way. That the way is only seen fully in the person of Jesus. That in him God enters into life under the sun, and God the Son comes in and shows us this life, this power, this joy that he walks in, that we can't possibly fully fathom. And yet he comes after us and he shows us fully what it means to be God and to be human. And then he surrenders his will to God the Father, even to the point of death on the cross. But that does not end him. That's the beginning. That it is through surrendering to God, through his death, that we can find life. He is raised from the dead and promises if we will follow him on this path, that's the life that we will find. He came to give us his life, that life of power and freedom and joy. But the only way there is by dying to yourself, by surrendering, by trusting God with your desires, with your hopes, with your dreams. So today, with the teacher and with Jesus, I'm pleading with you, especially young people. Don't wait. Don't delay. Don't tell yourself like, oh, I'll get right with God after this, and after this, and after I do this, and after that, then I'll do it. While you're young, while you're alive, remember your Creator. Surrender your life to Jesus. Trust him with your life, your dreams, your future, your eternity. Let him carry what you can't carry. Let him forgive what you cannot fix. Let him lead you to a joy that you cannot take for yourself. So I'm going to close this series and this message with a simple prayer. And I don't know where you're at today, but if you find yourself hesitating to trust God with your joy, with your life, if you find yourself bowing to insecurities, if you find yourself running from him, I just want to encourage you. Today is the day. You can surrender to him. You can trust him. And am I saying it's going to be all cupcakes and butterflies? I am not. But I am saying that's the only true way to joy.